Bruins Beat is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get up to $100 cash back on that first deposit. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Today we're getting negative, baby. We've seen some of the comments. We've heard you on our positive videos over the last 2 weeks of best Sweeney this, best Sweeney that. Today gloves are coming off and we're looking back at the bad stuff. We're getting down in the mud, fists up, bang, bang, getting ready to see the bad things that have happened since Don Sweeney started in 2015. And we're doing one episode because initially I thought, okay, maybe we can do a bad draft picks and separately a bad signings. Went back and looked. There's not enough bad draft picks to do 2 episodes or do one episode.
There's a couple, but there's not a huge group. It also helps when you're not picking
bad ones.
It also helps when you're not picking in the first and second round for years on end. So
that's the thing. If they were, we could rip on that. But again, it's like I was saying this to you, it's hard to quantify a 3rd round pick as bad or a 4th or 5th, 6th or 7th. Those are, for lack of a better term, crapshoot picks. You don't know what those are,
right?
What those are going to bring. So I'm not going to put, Curtis Hall as a selection here. Cause again, 4th rounder in 2018. I mean, what were you really expecting? If you get anything, that's terrific. But so how we're going to format this is we're going to do we each draft 3, but we're going to pick between draft picks and signings. We're not going to do separate because there aren't even enough bad draft picks to do 3 and 3. I know people are like, yes, there must be. There has to be.
There has
Jack
to be.
Becker in 2015. He was a terrible pick in the 7th round.
Yeah.
No, can't do that. We're not going to do that.
Where's the Pavel Shen erasure? It's like, he was a 7th round pick.
Pavel Shen. God, I think that might have been my first dev camp was Pavel Shen. I remember it was my first dev camp in 2018, and Jack Becker was there because he was a 2015 pick. And I remember Sarah Sivian, friend of the show, Sarah Sivian, back then was like, I've seen this kid at Penn State a bunch of times, and my God, he stinks. Dude, he's not that good.
Not looking great.
Yeah, and he was 7th rounder. Not expecting a heck of a lot.
Said, crapshoot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a 7th round pick is. So we'll do a coin flip again. We'll do a coin flip. It's crazy. I have the same coin. We did the coin flip for.
Oh my God! It's almost like we're recording these all in a row.
No way. We would never do something like that.
Sounds like I'm wearing the same exact thing.
They're like, wow, Evan and Conor, they never change clothes. Same thing, glasses, hat, fan, everything.
He's a Sims character. Well, the fans always God. We know that.
Yeah, that's true. I stopped mine, but sometimes I'll sit in here and just boil as we do these episodes. I'm I just leave it on.
Yes.
But anyway, let's have you pick first, or pick. What do you want to pick? Heads or tails?
Tails.
All right. So you did tails last time it worked. Let's see what happens. And it's tails again. So you get the first pick. You get to pick the worst, either free agent or draft pick since Don Sweeney began in 2015. The floor is yours.
I don't think I'm breaking any new ground here, Evan, but I got to go with Zach Senyshyn, 15th overall in 2015. We all know about the 2015 draft at this point, but still, when you look at just the number of players that would have, helped out the Bruins in short order, would have potentially put you over the top in, 2019 at the very least. But who knows if one of these guys you get a Kyle Connor or a Shabbat or any of these players. And I don't look at the guys that dropped out of the first round. I don't look at Sebastian Aho. Everyone missed on him in the first round, right? But even I think we mentioned this on the last podcast that we definitely didn't record 10 minutes ago. It had a Travis Konechny, right? A solid middle 6 player that plays the game the right way, can impact the game. Just even one more of those players, I think, would have maybe been the difference. Yeah, I mean, you lost Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final 4 years after the draft. Just any other roster player maybe would have been the difference there and helped you out. So you look at that and the ramifications of 2019. You look at, again, a lot of very good rosters, before and after 2019 that maybe would have been put over the top if you had another solid, player, let alone a franchise, a Barzal or someone like that. Again, I don't harp too much on Zaboral because, again, didn't work out, but was rated exactly where he was. Like that was the guy people thought was going to be a top 10 pick. But Senyshyn was way off the board. That's almost like we got our two guys. Let's swing for the fences for a guy that had speed, had some potential of what he saw in the OHL, but still was quite the reach when you had quite a few guys that you look at where they were, like a guy like Kyle Connor, looms large in terms of maybe if there was ever a draft where it wasn't smart to swing for the fences when there was surefire production and talent there in front of you. That's a tough one.
You look back, and we've done this 1,000. I mean, this is not like breaking new ground. We have done this a million times, and we will probably do this more. Barzal 16, Connor 17, Shabbat 18. I mean, again, Eriksson Ek 20, Brock Besser 23, Konechny 24, Beauvillier 28. Like you had legit NHL talent come after. And I agree. I mean, I understand the thinking of like, hey, we're going to take a swing on a guy who we really like, but probably isn't a first round pick. But I just think, you look back and you're like, oh my God, like that, like it's right there. It's right there. And Barzal was highly rated, if memory serves, at the time.
Yeah.
People liked him. Obviously, he was the 16th pick.
I don't believe he had good pre-draft interviews. I was thinking, what I heard was the thing, but also look at Kyle Connor, who I forget. I don't think he had his first year in Michigan, right? It was the next year where he put up 70 points, but I think he lit up the USHL. If I believe that's right for a guy like Kyle Connor. So you look at just what he provided in terms of just pure offense. And you're the Bruins, where you already have in 2015, you have a guy, David Pastrnak, who didn't realize his potential, but you realize, I think, pretty early on, this is a guy that should not have gone 25th overall the year before. You got something here. What if we pair him with another guy who lit up the USHL and Kyle Connor, right? And again, it could have just been a Konechny. We're not asking for a 30-goal guy like a Besser or a Kyle Connor or someone like that. Even just a guy that gave you 20 goal, another DeBrusk. You know which another DeBrusk would have helped that team over the last couple of years? Pretty good.
Oh, David Krejci would have been pumped. I also think, again, Barzal was the next best. He was best available at 15, if I remember correctly. So, if you just went with the best available there, boom. Like that guy on the guy on TikTok, the kid who always eats at Costco, boom.
You're giving me weight. I know you sent that in a text recently, and I had no idea what you're talking about. I'm already still trying to get caught up on.
Ty Anderson. I didn't know about that either until I went and looked.
So I guess I'm behind the times in terms of what's. You already told me about Sketcher or whatever his name, and I'm still far behind on that. So a lot
is true.
I have to get caught up on all these new things. I'm still doing the dab, and it's 2024.
That's right.
So.
You still are, and I respect that. And then remember Ty sent us the video of the dude on TikTok who's dresses up as a wizard and runs behind the counter.
I hate that. That's all I get. That's all I get now. The guy's just harassing people at TJ Maxx.
That's all it is. That's all it is. Yeah, Kyle Connor lit up that's interesting. He did 3 years in the USHL from 12 to 15, had 80 points. Crazy. In 2015, and then went on.
And then he went sicko mode at Michigan.
Yeah, and 71 at Michigan.
And he didn't win the Hobie Baker, I don't think.
No, I wonder who won it. Was that Jimmy Vesey who won it in 2016?
2016 absolutely was. Yeah, that's who it was.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. My God. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, Senyshyn number one. That's an easy one. I don't begrudge you from that. My pick. This is a tough call because there are two free agent signings I'm looking at. Both were high paying, one more than the other. I guess for my second pick, I'm going to go with Matt Bolesky. Yeah, because actually I have the next two picks, so it actually does not matter. I didn't think that. Matt Bolesky, 5 years, $19 million over those 5 years. Again, not crazy money. But I was just going back and looking, and again, the cap was different then. So just under $5 million per for a winger was a fair amount of money. And I'm looking back at his numbers with the Ducks. So he had kind of a breakout season in 2014-15, 22 goals, 32 points. had 24 points the year before, wasn't a proven guy, kind of looked like he was on the upswing though. And like the Bruins were coming in at sort of a, hey, this guy has potential. Wasn't the case at all. Came in here, had 15 goals and 37 points in that really weird 2015-16 year where everybody was injured at all times. And he didn't really produce. And then 16-17 was embarrassing. 3 goals, 8 points, 49 games. And then it was just, he fell off. Had some injury trouble, ended up in Providence for a while that next season. Just wasn't worth it at all. Ended up getting traded to the Rangers. And after that, never really regained his footing in the NHL ever. Like completely fell off. He's still only 36. And this all took place the end of the last decade. So really a tough signing for the Bruins. That was post Lucic. Because that was that 15 off season. They had traded Lucic, and then the draft had happened, and then they wanted to kind of re-sign a cheaper version of Lucic, who had younger upside, all that stuff. Wasn't Bolesky at all. And again, like one of those other failed David Krejci wingers where just like they could not find a fit for him. I think that's who they paired him with, if memory serves.
I believe so. And he had a great playoff run, I know, right before free agency too. But like
he did.
The way he played with, I think he primarily played with Getzlaf quite a bit. Like a very different player from a guy like David Krejci as well. Like it just wasn't a good fit. You were kind of banking on him carrying through what he saw in the postseason. Just did not work out at all.
He had that OT goal against the Blackhawks where he like slid on his butt. Being like, that's him. That's the guy. Like, gotta have him.
Guys, he doesn't score every goal like that. No, guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, he doesn't. But yeah, unfortunate for him. I mean, obviously, like 4th round pick in 2006, just didn't really pan out. I mean, he kind of panned out. He had some good years in the NHL. Like, that's great. But for the money that he was given, and again, we're pro getting the bag, so like, go off, Matt Bolesky, get that money. But for the Bruins, just wasn't really a smart signing. I want to get to my second pick in a second, but first, quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. Get in on the excitement and win up to 100 times your cash with the summer games on Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 while watching Team USA rack up the gold medals this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineups of players across basketball, soccer, tennis, golf, and more in as little as 60 seconds. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you're locked in. Personally, on the Red Sox side of things, I'm going with Jarren Duran more hits. I'm also going with Rafi Devers more hits. Those two are just on fire as the Red Sox make their quest for the postseason. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So with my second pick, this was who I was considering taking with my first pick, David Backes. 5 years, 30 million, 6 million per. Really nice piece in St. Louis. It's interesting. I think we've talked about this before, how the best American players of the 2000s of that time kind of had the David Backes mold of like gritty, hard-nosed, good around the net, like not very fast, not super skilled, but just like gritty guys you want in your room. Leaders, like that's the kind of player you want. Obviously, you Patrick Kane's. But like David Backes was, that was kind of the prototypical American player. Bruins signed him right before his age 32 year for $6 million per. Looked at him. I mean, again, this was, when they had Bergeron and Krejci, looked at him as kind of another leader in the room, looked at him as a right wing. Just never really could take off here. I mean, he did have like that first year, 16-17, had 38 points. Yeah, like 38 points in 74 games. The tough part there again was the Bruins, invested in him as his career was going, on the downtrend rather than, picking a guy who was going on the up. So like looking back, and again, I wasn't covering the team then. Were you covering the team in 2015-16?
I was not, no.
So like we weren't around then. We would have been like, wow, that was a terrible pick. I mean, who would ever want to do such a thing? But when you look back though, you wonder like, oh, they're signing a guy $6 million per. I don't remember the reaction, but $6 million per for 5 years for a guy who's 32 and not very quick in a league that was quickly becoming all about speed. You look back and you wonder like how that one happened and like what the rationale is. And I think that was also a reaction to like getting another Lucic type player of big, physical, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I feel like everyone had the same kind of scenario play out when Backus signed, because I think it was Bob McKenzie who tweeted like Bruins signed Backus 1 year, $6 million. People were like, oh, that's great.
Hell
he's
yeah.
only 32. Hell yeah. Like got a new veteran voice come in, and then like 5 minutes later, he's like, sorry, it's 5 years. Everyone's like, what?
Okay. Not as good.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, like, I get the rationale in terms of having this veteran guy, a captain of a team, a well-respected a guy that
really good guy.
Yeah, and played a key role in terms of, with that roster kind of being in transition, a lot of younger players coming in. I get that sentiment, but for $6 million for a guy that played a style of game that wasn't going to translate well once you're past the age of 30. Again, I mean, this is a guy that was scratched in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final against his former team. And you can make the argument that probably shouldn't have been the case, but like Carson Kuhlman kind of outplayed him and did more in a top 6 role than Backus in that series. He scored a goal in Game 6, an elimination game, Carson Kuhlman. So, again, I get the rationale of why the Bruins would target a player like that, but for that term and for that price, like that, which kind of hindered you from making other kind of marginal moves that probably would have moved the needle more for you. Again, in 2016, when you needed that veteran presence, I get it. But when it's 2018 and Pastrnak is taking a huge step forward and Rask is still playing at a high level and you still have Bergeron and Krejci, that's when you look at what David Backus was bringing you and what the price was. It just wasn't worth it.
No, and it is like, again, it was a sad ending because like you had that loss to his former team in the Cup final, missed his chance at a Cup, didn't play in Game 6 and 7. And then, I think did he get bought out? Was that what or did he get put on? I forget how his time ended here.
He was put on waivers, I believe. No one took him. And then they had to dump his contract more or less to Anaheim.
That's right.
So they got Andre Kasha, who they hope was going to be a potential top 6 guy with high upside, and gave up Axel Anderson, draft pick, and Backus to kind of dump that contract of Backus's deal, but ended up not working out. But again, it's not good when you have to give up draft capital just to get a contract off your books.
Yeah, but again, Backus just had a really great career with St. Louis. 45 points the year before coming here, 58 before that, high of 62 in 2010-11. But just and you're right, that contract was annoying. Every year we would talk like, oh, if the Bruins had that extra $6 million, imagine what they could do, or even like some of that $6 million. So not fun there. What's your second pick?
I'm going to stick with free agency, actually. I'm going to go with John Moore, who signed 5 years, 13.7, so $2.75 million per year. A signing that, when they got him, you looked at the term, especially for a guy that I think was 28, was solid in roles with the Devils leading up to that. Solid kind of puck-moving guy, but you look at just the term, especially for a guy that you didn't really know what exactly he was in terms of, was he a guy that you view as a top 4 fixture? Is he a guy that you think has more room to grow? It just didn't work out. Only kind of played 1 full year. Dealt with injuries quite a bit. He only played 4 total years with the Bruins for his time here ended, but only played 97 games over those 4 years. So he dealt with a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
Wasn't super effective in terms of what his overall role was. Great guy in the room. Guys loved him. Great guy to talk to, but in terms of what the price is, and especially I think the term more than anything, it was one of those contracts you look at like on Cap Friendly, prayers up, but like you look at like his how many years
right.
he was
rip in peace, Cap Friendly.
Yeah, but you look at like when they'd have like the chart of like how long guys are signed for, and you look at like another 3 blocks for more in terms of his contract, you're like, I don't like that much. So I think especially the term and what he provided just didn't really work with what the Bruins were trying to do at that point, where, again, that was even before they went to the Stanley Cup. So they were a team that was trying to build for now and for the future. And just the overall investment in Moore just didn't work out.
Do I remember right? He had so he played in Game 7 against the Blues, and I think he had a scoring chance or two in that first period. Like, people have probably not went back and watched that game. I can't understand why they wouldn't have. Yeah. But in that first 10 minutes, the Bruins dominated and they had a bunch of chances. And I think he set one or two of them up, which I think back, I'm like, imagine if those had went in and John Moore was a folk hero in Boston. Things would just go so differently.
Yes.
But I agree. And that was another one of those contracts where it doesn't kill you, but to not have that 2.75 mil and have it tied up in that where he's just not really playing, it didn't help anybody. It didn't help anybody. We'll get to your next pick in a second, but first, quick word from our friends over at
the Stanley Cup final is over, and what a thriller it was. The Celtics are NBA champions. With hockey and basketball playoffs over, attention turns to the MLB. And is there a better activity to do during the summer than hitting the ballparks? Nothing beats a summer night at Fenway Park, a Fenway frag, an ice cold beverage, and the crack of the bat. It's a nice change of pace from the heart-pounding intensity of the NHL and NBA playoffs. Just pure relaxation, good weather, and great vibes. I feel like every year I make a slew of fond memories at Fenway. For me, last year it was in Chicago watching the Red Sox take down the Cubs at historic Wrigley Field. Gotta say, Cubs fans, very nice people. Want to go to a game this summer? Go check out Game Time, the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. That's right, they go down. I love how easy to navigate the app is. The flash deals are awesome if you want to go to a game last minute. It's the perfect place. Save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Not to mention the views from all seats in the venue. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, back to the show.
So, Connor, your third and final pick, what's it going to be?
So, I mean, you could look at Zboril because I think you look at the consequences of that draft, but I'm going to go with another player from 2015 because you look at just where he was projected, how desperate I think the Bruins were for this to be a pick that panned out. I'm going to go with JFK, Jacob Forsbacka-Karlsson, 45th overall in 2015. And again, I feel kind of bad because as soon as he was drafted, everyone was like, oh, this guy's the next Bergeron. It's not that great to compare him to the best defensive forward of all time. You're kind of starting from a rough spot there.
Yeah.
But, I do think you look at just the fact he wasn't able to put it together at the NHL level. You look at 2015 where they projected him to be, and he had a solid little stretch there for a while, I think in 2018-19 that season. But that's a guy that when you look at where Bergeron was getting up there in age, where Krejci was getting up there in age, like you can look at a guy like Studnicka who is 2018 and you hope that he would pan out, but like JFK was a guy that you needed to hit and arrive in 2020, 21, where he could step in and ease the workload for a guy like Bergeron or Krejci, and it just didn't work out. So there's a lot of different options you can kind of go to in terms of weighing, necessity, their overall skill set, what have you. But I think JFK, a guy that I think had even it's not fair to compare him to Bergeron, was mapped out to having a pretty solid floor of like, all right, he's not Bergeron. He could be a really good 3C, good at faceoffs, good at all these things. Just wasn't able to put it together.
No, he wasn't. That's a great pick. I was not expecting you to go with that one for that. So now I'm like scrambling. I'm like, oh shoot, what's going to be my third pick?
I'm like taking Michael Penix Jr. in the 8th overall and just throwing everything off.
I'm like Sean McVay when the Patriots drafted Cole Strange. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? You know who I'm going to go with? I'm going to go in line with what you just mentioned. Same kind of situation. Jack Studnicka in 2018. Jack Studnicka taken 53rd overall, so second rounder. And similar type of thing of, that was a time when, 2015 was, Bergeron had just been on the cover of NHL 15.
Yeah.
Krejci was great. They weren't really like, I don't think the future of the center ice position was like fully on people's minds. 2018 was the first time, or one of the first years, when I think you really started to hear that. And I think that was the same offseason the Bruins like went super hard for John Tavares, kind of replaced David Krejci.
David Krejci was pissed.
Yeah, Krejci had like the best season of his career that next year. That would have been perfect every year. Just like go for someone and try to, get them going.
Keep on trying to sign Jimmy Vesey. Just piss off David Krejci.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But Studnicka, again, a guy that, had a lot of high expectations, was a high offensive centerman, had chances and just never really could hold on to it. Now, is some of that Bruce Cassidy? Maybe. Like I've mentioned to you, people remember back, it was that 2020, 2021 season when he started out the season as like the top line center. Cause I think, was it Bergeron who was hurt to begin that year? And he was there for like a game, and then into the shadow realm he went. So again, maybe with a coach that was more lenient, sure. But again, like hasn't really fit anywhere else. Like didn't fit in Vancouver. Did you see his numbers with the Sharks this past year? Which again, you look at like, all right, on the Bruins, tough to crack the lineup, but like his numbers with the Sharks this past year, where let me tell you, there's a lot of playing time up for grabs. That team we might be able to play on that team. I think we could play on the Sharks, but I have his numbers here: 0 points, 0 goals, 17 games. I can't get across his plus minus. I can't imagine it was
He's minus 14, playing
11:49
of ice time a game. Like, God, it's not great.
Yeah, like that fell off, and I you wonder like what happened. And again, like not every second round pick's gonna hit. We get that, but they had such high hopes for him, and just kind of, I don't want to say a bust, because like a second rounder it's not like he was like, third overall, but like for what you hoped, nowhere near. And then you traded him for almost nothing to Vancouver. I mean, I know you got like Michael DiPietro back in that trade, and didn't they get like a defenseman back in that deal?
They got Myronberg.
That's right, Myronberg, who we just saw at Def Camp. That's right. So again, not a heck of a lot for him. We talked a lot, I remember, in those years, 19, 20, of like, oh, do you dangle Studnicka? We kept being like, no, like that's a guy you want to keep and have as your next franchise centerman. And I think people look back, like hindsight's 2020, obviously, but like we look back and it's like they didn't have a lot of other good young talent at that time. So like I think that's why Studnicka looked as good as he did. So tough for Studnicka, tough for the Bruins. My pick, I was debating going with that one, actually wasn't Zaboral, because Zaboral, again, like it was a bust, and he would have been picked at some point, but at the time, like was projected to be like the 13th overall pick. They didn't draft like crazy out of the blue for him. Wasn't like Senyshyn. Nick Foligno, 2 years, $7.6 million. It was only a 2-year deal, so like, not the end of the world. But a lot of money tied up in a guy who had, I think, was it 13 points? Yeah, 13 points. His first year was a minus 13 on that 2021-22 Bruins team. I know him and Cassidy obviously didn't get along. And then, he had an uptick the next year with the Bruins, 26 points, 60 games. Just kind of slower fourth liner. Awesome quote. Really good guy. Great for the culture, awesome for the room, and actually had a like fairly okay season for Chicago last year. Like Chicago gave him a ton of money.
Yeah, and he was good he was good his last year with the Bruins too. Like for what his role was, once you knew that he was all right, he should be more of a bottom six player. And his value maybe isn't always directly on the ice. Again, you don't want to be paying a guy $7.6 million over 2 years for just his off ice impact, but he at least rebounded a little bit. And that's a guy that you compare that to like the Backus contract, right? Like maybe you overpay for a guy whose veteran presence you really lean on, not when it's 5 years. 2 years, okay.
Yes, 5 years, bit much. I agree with you, but yeah, I mean, unfortunate for those 2 years, but again, he was great for the content, fun guy to be around. So not bad. What else would you have gone for?
I mean, yeah, there's like you can look at like a guy like Axel Anderson, who I think is just playing in Sweden now. He was a second round pick. They kind of trade him as part of the deal to get back his contract off the books. So it wasn't like he went somewhere and ripped it up or anything like that, but just wasn't a good pick for where the Bruins had him in the second round. You can maybe say like Forbert for 3 years, $3 million per. Again, like steady in terms of what his job was, but dealt with quite a bit of injuries that kind of hampered his game. But those are kind of the ones that stand out to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, and on the free agency front, like, you could go with like a Derek Forbert, but again, like, you still got something out of him for $3 million. It just, the expectation was he was going to be this top pairing guy with McAvoy for cheap money. Wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And then that was that same offseason as Foligno, as Holla, as Olmark, when you had all this money to spend. And you just kind of signed a bunch of, aside from Olmark, you signed a bunch of, middle six or bottom pairing guys.
Right.
One draft pick who I left off the worst because I forgot. For some reason, I put him under the best, but like legit probably worst. Round 1, pick 18, 2017, Urho Vakanainen. I know he's having a nice little run out there in Anaheim now. You traded him in that Hampus Lindholm deal. So like you got something like legit. Like you would have hoped Vakanainen turned into Lindholm. So he just went out and got Hampus Lindholm anyway. But never really developed into a, top pairing defenseman or anything like that here. So that'd be another one that I'd probably.
And also, I believe it was the 2 picks right after Vakanainen in that draft where I think were Josh Norris to Ottawa and Robert Thomas to Blues. So.
That's right. I forgot about that one. So yeah, that too. So again, like, I mean, for worst picks, I think we had 6 listed, including Vakanainen. I just included Vakanainen. Like, we had Anderson, Stadnicka, Zaboral, Senyshyn, JFK, and then free agency, like, Craig Smith didn't, wasn't as great as he could have been, but like still gave you value.
Solid third line guy, volume shooter. I'll take him.
Like
Craig. We don't besmirch Craig Sith.
Exactly. Craig Sith. No, we don't. So like, I'm fine with that too. So like, again, there haven't been a ton, but there have been a couple that were egregious. Like Backus, Bolesky, Senyshyn. Those 3 are like, that's bad. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of years. We'll see, like, where does Dean Letourneau fit in? Where does Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov, where do they slot in?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I picked Lindholm with my first overall pick or first pick
in
the free agency draft. So man, that guy better be good. That's this episode of Bruins Beat. Connor, continue to enjoy your honeymoon in the future. You enjoy it, swinging from the vines and hanging with the animals and lions and tigers and all that stuff. Maybe you'll encounter a real bear. That'd be kind of sick.
That'd be very strange if I ran into a bear where I'm going. But
I know, but maybe one can dream.
It's true. I shouldn't besmirch a unique idea that you threw out there. I'm sorry for raining on your parade.
What if we brought the bears over from like Maine and just stuck them in like Tanzania?
I feel like we'd probably be put on like a UN panel about destroying the ecosystem.
They would have killed us, and rightfully so if we did something like that. Anyways, Connor, go enjoy your future honeymoon. That is Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. We're presented by Prize Picks and Game Time. You Bruins Beat listeners have a great rest of your week.